Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, your resource for all things business, brand, and leadership. We are excited you have decided to join us today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Elevate Podcast. We're so excited that you're here. This is a fantastic episode that we have about taking your brand to the next level. I'm Robert Kalin here with my friends.
Hey everybody, Tony Frasconi, good to be with you.
Mike Newman here again. Good to join you. Looking forward to today's conversation.
It's going to be awesome, you guys. I have known Ron for a number of years now. Looked up to this gentleman for a long time. I consider him to be a marketing expert. He has originally when I met him, he was at a different company called Cesari up in Seattle. He's now down in Austin, Texas as the creative director for the Big Baby Agency, where in his career, he's had over 300 product launches with over 70 large businesses, over $6 billion in attributable revenue for his clients. I want to welcome Mr. Ron Lynch.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh man, we are honored and privileged to just have a conversation with you, my friend. I appreciate
you guys all sound like disc jockeys, by the way. I heard those intros and I'm like, holy smokes, I'm with pros. I don't know if I can sound that good. It was like
no, you resonance got the guitars in the background. That's all we need. So
it's pretty good. I need a filter like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Ron, give us a little bit about how you got involved in this industry, and share that with our audience.
Sure enough, when I was a kid, I actually early in my college years, I was invited by my roommate, one of my best friends, to go to an audition for a movie, and I ended up getting a role in a movie that Robert Altman directed. And that led to me getting a SAG card. Now, I lived in the Seattle area and I did about a dozen movies. And I actually was in a movie with River Phoenix, which was Brendan Fraser's first film called Dogfight. And I did a movie with Shirley MacLaine and one with Jeff Bridges. And so that was kind of cool. But I had a day job. And my day job was working in the grocery store. And when I was in my early 20s, I met my wife and I had a choice to move to Hollywood like Brendan Fraser or stay in Seattle and stick with my grocery job. And I stuck with the grocery job. So I spent a dozen years or so doing that in Seattle. And for those of you that are in the area, I worked at the metropolitan markets. I worked at one at Queen Anne Hill. I helped open one in Tacoma. And then I ended up working for these thriftway stores as kind of in corporate. But I learned P&Ls and the mechanics of business. And in the process of that, a couple friends of mine had launched the George Foreman Grill as an ad agency and OxyClean. And they were based in Seattle. And they introduced me to George Foreman's agent. And at nighttime, I'd been writing screenplays. And I met George Foreman's agent. And my friend who owned the agency, he introduced me. And we put his name on my screenplay with us both as co-writers. And we leveraged that to George Foreman's agent. And suddenly I'd sold a movie or optioned a movie. And the next week, his partner called and said, hey, how did you meet George Foreman's agent? I'm like, well, you guys kind of introduced me. He said, do you think you could write an infomercial? I'm like, absolutely. So I wrote a couple of infomercials for them, and I got fired from my grocery job for succeeding. Like my boss was supposed to give me a big bonus, and instead of giving me the big bonus, he gave me the big boot, and he replaced me with someone cheaper, and I was out of the grocery business, and I was in the infomercial business. And so that was right around 9/11. I think I got canned on the Monday after Labor Day weekend. A week later, 9/11 happened. I had 3 kids, no job, 9/11. A week later, I was writing and directing infomercials. And my first infomercials hit and worked, but I understood mechanics of retail, the mechanics of a demonstration because I had a grocery store, and I was doing cooking demos on TV. So I had this movie writing ability and the understanding of cooking, and that led to cooking infomercials. Wow. And so 20 years later now, I've had the opportunity to launch a bunch of brands and honestly have a lot of failures and learn from those along the way. And that was kind of my world. Like I got my education kind of by backing down the freeway, not driving straight down the freeway.
Ron, I just want to pause you for a second. Just pull back. I just want to pull back the curtain on that moment where somebody said, hey, can you write an infomercial? you had never written an infomercial, and you just said absolutely, like it was just like yes, And so, can you talk to our listeners about that moment and about stepping into saying yes when you really didn't maybe know everything you needed to exactly do?
Well, I knew what an infomercial was because these were my friends and I'd watched them.
Okay.
I'd tried to construct one. I had my first patent when I was 19, and I had the experience of trying to build my own infomercial, not knowing where it was going to go. It ended up in a retail store. So I had this experience of filmmaking, but I knew I wanted to make infomercials with these guys before any of this happened. I'd actually been trying to get them to let me write one for 2 years.
Wow.
And they were like, "You're a grocer. What do you know about this?" But when I sold the screenplay, that changed who I was in their mind. And so it was a very easy yes for me. It was a very eager yes. But I am extremely risk tolerant. I have a high faith in God. And I'm very likely to say yes to something because I don't have a whole lot of ego invested. Like, I know who I am and I'm willing to fail.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I guess, personal identity security makes you dumb enough to say yes. So I've been dumb enough to say yes to things a lot of times, but I've always learned.
Yeah, that's great. You just said something really interesting. So,
Thankfully,
your friends didn't see you one way until something happened, and then they perceived you a different way. I think this translates to business and branding and everything that we're going to be talking about today in a really beautiful way. Because I think sometimes we have visions in our minds as business owners of what our brand needs to be or what, where we want to go, but the customer doesn't see that yet. How would you talk about branding our business before we get into marketing our business?
Yeah. Let's go right to branding because it's very exciting to me. It's a very interesting, branding came from here in Texas, people branding cattle, how to keep my cows separated from your cows, right?
Yeah.
And then it became a line of quality. My cows are better than your cows, right? So then we get into the branding of the world. And the branding becomes a story about me as a company. This is who I am. Anybody can make handbags, but this is a Kate Spade branded handbag. This is a Gucci handbag. So there's this idea that progresses of quality and knowing what it is. If I see something with that brand, they're not just jeans, they're Levi's, they're Ralph Lauren, their Lucky brand. You have an association with what you're getting associated with that name. So it's an idea of price and quality, often luxury even. What has happened though that's changed in the last 20 years, and it's shifted radically, is we used to have these kind of 5 brand pillars. It's kind of the Wharton School of Business. Here's the 5 pillars. You must convince the audience this is who you are. When they think of Q-tip, they think of you. When they think of Kleenex, they think of this product. But there's also Scott tissues in the world. There are other brands of tissues and Q-tips. So how do we discern? And that in commodities, it becomes a matter of quality and price. But in things that aren't commodities, which is the small business owner, which is the startup, you're not selling a commodity if you're a small business owner for the most part. You definitely are on the side of quality or service. There's something to your unique selling proposition that makes you stand out. What is flipped though, because of social media, the audience is now putting brands on themselves like they're a NASCAR. They're using social media and they're picking 4 or 5 brands to say, I'm a Lululemon wearing, Bikram yoga, Prius driving, Starbucks drinking. And you can see this in people. They're defining their personalities like they're a combination lock with your brand. So no longer does your brand have to be the 5 brand pillars. Your brand has to be a character trait that they can adopt and advertise on your behalf.
So this is becoming more of it's an identity driven brand
Totally.
versus, okay, interesting.
Like when we think of a person that drives a Chevy Volt or a Prius or a Tesla. I think my microphone might be malfunctioning. Let me turn that one off real quick. Did we get the adjustment? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you great. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Perfect. So there's this change that happens. That
We lost you now, Ron. Be just a second. We'll have Ron back up.
And so I found it really interesting what he had to say about the fact that it is the characteristics of our brands that people adopt
Yeah.
that begin to define who we are.
Yeah.
And
It is really interesting. Nope, still can't hear you. It's really interesting because I was watching a thing about Nike and how they kind of, really pushed for that in their Nike swoosh and just do it campaigns in a really big way. And, people that wear Nike, I got a train coming through. So people that wear Nike really identify as, runners, people that like to work out,
you watched Air?
I think I did watch Air.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what we see happening. So I can tell you that Prius focuses on the politically correct green audience. Tesla focuses on the prestige, financially elevated audience, and Chevy Volt focuses on the economical, I'm an American and I bought an American electric car and I got a rebate audience. But it's their identity.
Yeah.
And you hear people talking about this. Oh, what do you wear? What do you drive? What do you eat? And they're scoping out their identity. And this has only proliferated since the internet, YouTube, Facebook, and the connectivity of international audiences. These high-end brands do extremely well in the Middle East and in Asia, where people are going, we're going to grab this brand and define our personality and identity by it.
That's really interesting. I hadn't even thought about this. The term lifestyle brand is really an identity brand, like you're talking about. And at our coffee shop, kind of our identity is this generous people push, right? And we notice so many just generous people who come into the shop because of it. It's identified who they are as a person. And I didn't really put two and two together until we just had this conversation. So that's
you're not advertising you're advertising them. You're giving them a vessel to fit in, and they're going to put that on. And I think it's very smart branding.
Very interesting.
That's why I stopped going to the coffee shop, by the way, Robert. I just,
Was it that, or did we kick you out? I don't know. I'm just.
He goes to stingy people down the street.
That's right. That's awesome. So go ahead, Mike.
So this idea of I'm identifying based on the different brands that I affiliate to and the things that I do. So for a business owner, how do we leverage that concept to be able to connect to the right people?
Right. You're looking for their meaning in you. And so what I have a pretty long process, but it's useful that I go through and I teach of how to back into that identity of what is the transformation that people get when they're with your brand. So it's not a transaction. That's the last thing that happens in a business. Well, actually, it's the second to the last thing happens in a business. Hopefully there's this idea of, I think I see me in this mirror, which is your brand. Then I step into it and I go, this is definitely me. And then I put it on and I'm like, this is so strongly me. It's going to be one of the 5 brands that I identify myself with. So this is very difficult to do with tires, but it's very easy to do with tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to do with commodities, and nobody cares who's wearing what tire, except in the car circle. Like as you drill down into identity, you can go, oh, I'm the BMW guy, I'm the Porsche guy, or I'm the Chevy guy, and I use Pirellis, Bridgestones, Hancooks. Like it matters at that level, but generally it's how do I relate to my customers, and what's the transcendent trait? So who do they become? Does the brand say I'm brave? Or does the brand say I'm courageous? Or does it say I'm adventurous? So you look at Helly Hansen, Patagonia, and North Face. They all want the same customer. But when I say those three words, you feel slightly different. Patagonia is a little more Earth Mama. Right? And it resonates in their color palette and the flag that they wave. Helly Hansen is a little more hardcore industrious. And North Face is, it's cold outside and I'm protected. I'm a mountain man. So you start to form an identity. And when you slap 4 or 5 of these together, you've got a combination lock for a person's identity. And you can find this in your brand. You can go, who are we? Who are they? And consider yourself a mirror. What do we want them to see and feel when they look in the mirror? And if you can identify a trait, you're winning. Like we did GoPro. We launched GoPro. What's GoPro's trait?
I would say it's like adrenaline, like
video on the go, right?
That's what the feature is video on the go. What's the character trait of someone who needs video on the go? What are they
adventurous?
Yeah, adrenaline junkie.
The tagline was "Be a hero." What are heroes? Brave. Bravery is the cliff you just jumped off of, the wave you just dove into, the cliff you just the scuba diving thing you did. Like it's bravery. I want to tell you that I'm really sophisticated and competent at my sport, and I've got a lot of courage.
Super smart.
Be a hero. We're selling bravery.
Yeah.
Adventure, and it's all that. It's everything you talk about, adventuresome, but it's at the core. That's the trait I'm getting is I have more courage than the next guy. Gal.
Yeah. And I can put it on video to show you, by the way.
Because I don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm humble. Watch the movie.
That's awesome. So I'm really excited. So not only for this conversation, but we get to have you all the way from Austin, Texas, to come up here at the Elevate conference in September. And I could not be more excited to learn from you.
Oh, I'm happy to be there. And we're going to talk about people's money mindset at the beginning of, hey, we are here on this earth not to chase money. And the whole country, the whole world is convinced that they belong to a religion that they don't even know that they signed up for, which is worshiping money. And we're going to try and pivot that and go, hold on a second. Is that really true? And work on that, and then work on these core issues of who you are and what's in your brand and what are there's 4 distinct things that make up a success of a business. And if you don't know what those are, you won't hit it. And most people when I go to a company, they can't name what they are. And they've sometimes been in the business for 2 or 3 years. And once you start clarifying for people and you put in front of them their mirror of this is what you are as a business, oh, it gets so much simpler to be good.
That's awesome.
So I'm really thrilled to be invited. It's very kind of you. And I love the Pacific Northwest. I grew up there. I'm thrilled to be coming home.
Yeah, it's going to be so great. You guys, if you want tickets to the Elevate conference, www.countercultureleadership/elevate23. That'll get you there. See all about it. Super excited to have you up here. I cannot tell you what it's going to mean to me to take you out to dinner beforehand and just have these conversations. And Ron, I really appreciate you just jumping on here.
My pleasure entirely. And if you're going to come to the conference, don't worry. Buy your ticket.
You're only going to get a ticket to the front half of your seat, but that's all you're going to need.
Oh, I love it.
I like that. That's good. That's good.
It's time to elevate your business, your brand, and your leadership. Join us for that. And you guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
And hey, if
God
there's
bless.
somebody that you think that needs to hear Ron's message right now, go ahead and share this with them so that it gets out there. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for joining us. Our hope is this episode has been helpful for you today. If it's impacted you in some way, we encourage you to share it with someone. To receive a direct notification of our next episode, click the follow button on your favorite app or platform. You can also watch each episode on YouTube. The links are in the description. If you want to connect with us on a deeper level, go to countercultureleadership.com/resources. We'll see you next week on the Elevate Podcast.